what was the impetus for moving to Nashville? Was it to start a band? Were you already together with your band? Was it after school? Like, yeah, what started it out?
The reason for moving to Nashville back when I did was because in Houston, I was very fortunate to have done everything I wanted to do. Um, yes, thank you. That I don't mean that in a. I'm nobody, dude. First of all, so doing what I wanted to do doesn't mean I'm like on top of the world. But I felt like I had met my ceiling, and I was staying extremely busy playing very regularly, and I wanted the next challenge, the next step in my career. And so I had spoken to a few of my buddies who are very well known in the drumming community, um, that I was fortunate enough to have connected with when I was much younger. This is around 2016. Okay, when I'm starting to think about these ideas, 2015, 2016, I'm thinking about these ideas. So I reach out to some of my buddies. I've had some really awesome advice through the years from a lot of people that I admire that are awesome. And the idea was, hey, if you want the next challenge, move to a city that's going to challenge you more. Not that Houston wasn't challenging me, but there are a lot of great musicians there. So always the big three: L.A., New York, Nashville, and dude, Nashville is just insanely cool. So my wife and I had a have a friend that lives here, and he was getting married, and so we came to visit for his wedding. We did a road trip, and we just ended up just loving the city. Um, and so we're like, we're doing it. Sophia, my wife, Sophia and I were newlywed, like not even, dude. I think like our first year we had an apartment in Houston, and then we just dipped. For her, that was extremely difficult because her family unit at home is super tight, right? So it was a big change. We're going to Nashville. The reason for the move was wanting to pursue different challenges. I love the idea of being a hired gun and being in a band and things like that, right? So here I am, this younger dude with no grays. I have grays now. Luckily, you can't see it. Uh, but so yeah, we moved to Nashville, and that was the beginning of what turned out to be the best decision, the best professional decision I've made. Um, and it was awesome. But to answer your question, basically, like very fundamentally, I wanted a different challenge. I wanted to push my career opportunities, and I needed something. I'm a very dude. I love challenges. I'm extremely hard on myself, and I'm very competitive. Um, I think that let me do a sidebar for those of you out there that are extremely competitive. I think it's a very healthy, especially amongst young men, to be very healthily competitive. But if you're not going to have a mirror up to yourself and be your worst critic, then your competition is not justified, because then it just becomes arrogance. And there's a difference between being proud of your work and being very confident in yourself, and being competitive, and also just being young, goofy, and a little arrogant, which we have all experienced, I think. So just a sidebar there. I think it's great to be competitive if you're going to measure yourself on the same scale, and if not of a heavier scale than what you would measure others, because you should be very careful how you measure others. Yeah, that's a little bit of a sidebar. We can go on that forever, but hopefully that answers a bit of your question. I know there's so much more inside of that I didn't give, but that fundamentally, that was the reasoning. Also, dude, let me tell you, not only is it a beautiful day here, but this playlist takes me back to like 2006 or 7. I don't even know. It's a good day. Got my coffee.
Okay, nice. So to jump off of that, there are a bunch of directions we can go, but I know from listening to some other interviews that you're really passionate about teaching. And in the last couple of years, I got into teaching more intensively. So yeah, I have a compare notes type of question, which is your students, let's say your average student who comes to you, do they need an attitude adjustment in the direction of more humility or more confidence?
Oh, dude, that's a phenomenal question. Well, I have to say, to preface, I have now, because of this, the essence of this question that I see in people, I've kind of changed the way that I approach my educational, as the educational drumming. I consider myself more of a drum coach now, and that sounds super dorky, right? But
I use the same word. I'm right there
do
with
you?
you. Yeah.
Oh, dude, come on. Because this is the thing. We're interacting with humans, with people. They're not just drummers. They're humans. They have stuff going on in their life. And we teach everyone from the age of like, I don't know, 6 to 50 or even beyond that, to be honest. So to preface and the answer to the question, I have to say that first, it's important to see your students through the lens that they're not just drummers, so that you can understand how to go about approaching the question of the balance between an arrogant person and how to deal with that and someone that's lacking confidence. I have noticed, interestingly enough, and I'm kind of grateful for this, that most of the students that I've had lack confidence. Even the guys that are like, come off a little cocky, truly they're masking something. I think humans in general lack confidence. And that's a cool thing in the sense that we have an opportunity to grow in an amazing way, as opposed to someone that's just arrogant, like actually arrogant, not just a little cocky. And that's very hard to deal with. It's like the difference between a malleable metal and one that is rigid, right? So I enjoy, and I've dealt with more students that lack confidence. I do enjoy that because it's really cool to see when they finally fall into that moment where it's like, oh, I feel good. They do something out of their own accord that they felt good about, whether it's flashy or not. They felt good about it, and you can see it because you can also hear it, right? But yeah, I've dealt with definitely um, more drummers that lack confidence. If I had a really arrogant drummer, dude, I'm a dad. I'm 31. I know 31 isn't old or whatever. Maybe it is. I don't know. I feel great.
Yeah, for
But
me.
I've got kids, dude. If I come across an arrogant drummer as a student, I'm gonna whip him into shape, right? Like I'm not gonna let him float around in his arrogance. I'm gonna put it to him like it is. I actually really enjoy the fact that I'm so brutal with myself, because that puts me in a place where I can teach an arrogant young drummer, hey, first of all, if you want to sit down and drop everything you have to drop and smash, we'll smash. Let's go in if you want to do that. But I want you to know that that leads you nowhere, and also you gained nothing, right? You gained nothing. It leads you nowhere. So what? We're not in middle school or high school anymore where it's like, you're trying to, smash out a insane solo at the talent contest because there's a cute girl that you like or whatever the case, right? Like, we're adults. And even if you are 15, that's not realistic. That's like a movie. That doesn't happen, you know?
So I've heard you mention that you had to teach yourself, especially at the beginning, and you were checking out like Dave Weckl DVDs and Vinny Colaiuta. And I wonder what, if any, if that gave you some kind of teaching superpower. And I'll try to refine what I mean. Was there anything that you discovered by working it out on your own that later, when you were exposed to formal teaching, you realized, oh, there are some unnecessary steps here, or oh, this teaching is inefficient, or actually this thing isn't necessary because I can already do this thing and I skipped a step. Are there any sort of insights in that regard that fell out for you?
This is something I do bring up to my students, because whenever someone's taking a lesson from me and they've never taken a lesson from me, unfortunately, I've had lessons with students that are like, I've had 3 different drum teachers. I'm kind of like at my wit's end. They don't know who to trust.
Mm.
They're paying somebody that'll gladly take the money, and then they get something out of it, but it's not like groundbreaking. And so for the students that have never taken a lesson with me, I try to reassure them in my teaching method. And actually, one of the things that I mention is how difficult it is to do it on your own, and how much trial and error, mostly trial, that I went through when I was younger. And the methods that I found to be inefficient, the techniques that I found to be inefficient, were all techniques that I was watching and hearing from other players. I like to sit and think. I love to just sit and think. There's so many moments where I'll just contemplate things. Like when I was younger, I wanted to be so many things in life. So I love thinking. I love philosophy, things like that. And I've thought a lot about drumming, dude, over the years. I used to look at my own hands And I would look at my hands as they were holding sticks, and I'd think to myself, why do I hold the sticks the way I do? Is it just because it's habit? Have I ever really analyzed my own hands? Have I ever analyzed the fulcrum point of a stick? Everyone's like, oh, here's the fulcrum. But have they analyzed what that means and how that is affected depending on stick size, depending on stick weight distribution, taper, anything? And what I came to learn was when I was younger, no, like especially in marching band. I marched in high school, and during high school, you know, you're what, between 13 to 18. So at that point, I already been playing drums for a while. But the methods that were being shown to me weren't always the most efficient, and I would question them. But of course, you don't question as a teenager because you're a teenager. And in reality, the methods that I'd questioned, it ended up allowing me to find answers that were what I think objectively detached from the core pool of drum teaching, and just from the perspective of someone who's interested in finding efficiency. I remember I brought up a technique to one of my drum instructors when I was like 15 or 16 years old, and it wasn't very welcomed. Not because the person wasn't a welcoming person, but because, dude, you have to think about this. You're going to reteach the whole line, that new technique? No, you got competition coming up in 6 weeks. They're not concerned with that. So what I found was spending hundreds upon hundreds of hours just on a pad, because I didn't have a drum set for many of the years growing up, allowed me to fine tune the obsessiveness that I had, right, between the relationship between my stick and my hand. On a single surface, there's no distraction. And in my opinion, if you're good on a pad, you can be good on any surface as long as you understand how to manipulate touch and balance. Because if you're very focused on one surface, then you're going to hit your toms very accurately. You're going to have I love articulation, precision, accuracy, right? Those things are very intriguing to me. So I think, honestly, what I found was, unfortunately, especially in today's era, and maybe you can vouch for this. I don't know if you've seen the same thing, but in today's era, everything's like quick. You know, I want, give me 3 quick licks now. I want to be fast in 2 weeks, whatever the case is. I've spent hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of hours just on my hands, dude. Right? And I think the answer is more time, more quality time, because you can ram your head into a wall for 3 years. It doesn't mean that your head's going to turn into, you know, stone because you're calcium. You can't do that. Efficient quality time management allows for you to be able to grow the ideas of whatever you're doing, whether it's drumming, martial arts, you pick. So yeah, I know that was a little bit of a longer answer, but I do think that this is the core. This is the core of why so many drummers are missing the things that they want in their tool belt, because they're just not focusing on it. I mean, dude, it's, for so many drummers, not for me, it's boring to just play the same pattern for 30 minutes straight. They want to check it off and go to the next thing, right? It's human nature. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a balance between going deep enough for long enough and burnout. And that's something that I definitely face. And like with my students, like a lot of them will hire me for 6 months. And the idea is like within 6 months, we're going to put you on a different trajectory to where like your playing's different than when you started. And a lot of times there's an incentive there to step people from one thing to the next. And I think there is a positive pressure to find gaps in the wall rather than ramming your head against them, and to maybe front load some of the skills that are going to be quicker to learn, that are going to redound to more benefits when they go off on their own later, and then they're still spending those 10,000 hours on their hands. But I've also very publicly come out kind of against this idea that you can really shortcut things. Like the shortcuts are in the realm of like 7 years instead of 10 years. They're not in the realm of like 2 weeks instead of 10 years, you know?
You know what's funny about that? That's a really interesting point, because I think that is so It's accurate and very true. And actually, what I've experienced, okay, I don't know. What I've experienced is now in my current life, even within the past 8 years of my drumming career, I've been able to shortcut things. Let's put it in quotes, right? Um, do things quickly without a lot of effort. We'll call that a shortcut, right? So I guess it doesn't need to be in quotes. Do things quickly without a lot of effort. It just happens. I've been able to shortcut things, but not because I've shortcutted my drumming, because I spent so much time obsessing over my, skill set and my craft that now, you know, I don't know, dude. For example, Arch Echo, the guys don't live in the same state. We do a rehearsal before tour starts, and then we play the shows. So if you're not already sharp, right, that's going to be on you. There's no time. Rehearsal's not time for practice, right? And so I can shortcut things in the sense that I've got 3 kids under the age of 6. I don't have a drum set in my house. I haven't had a drum set in my dwelling I can't tell you how long consistently I've had a drum set in my dwelling where I can practice. So you have to find a way. So for me, listening, like there are a lot of times you can ask the boys in the band where we've tracked songs and it's like I'm listening to it and I'm not touching the kit. Mm-hmm. And that's shortcutting for some people because like, what? You don't sit on the kit and run through your parts? No, I don't run through the parts. Oh, dude, how? Because I spent so many stinking years making sure that if I hear a pattern, I can recognize the pattern and I know I can play the pattern, that I don't need to do that, right? For certain patterns. And so for some people, it's a shortcut. It's like, dang, okay, I need to do that. Okay, if you want to be able to do that, not that I can play anything and everything, right? But I'm saying if you want to have the ability to shortcut things, you should probably spend a ridiculous amount of time on your craft to where when you hear a pattern, you can recognize it and then imitate it. If I'm here and we hear, you should be able to go. You should be able to recognize the accent different. I don't know if you picked that up at all, but
yeah, it came through on the audio.
Okay, that's shortcutting in a way. It's like, oh, he heard a pattern, he recognized it, and he played it. But in reality, that's because of so many years. So what you're saying is true. That shortcutting 7 to 10 years. It's not like a 2 weeks to 10 years thing. By no means, right?
No, it's all fascinating, and I'm avoiding constantly dipping into martial arts analogies because I know we could go down many rabbit holes there.
I'm the rabbit hole king. If you just said talk, this would be like a 3-4 hour, podcast.
Just one martial arts rabbit hole. So I'm a purple belt now in jiu-jitsu. Got my purple belt September 22. Yeah, it was awesome. And only maybe this year have I started to understand like watching jiu-jitsu DVDs. Because before I would just be like, all this stuff looks so abstract. I would need to practice it for hours to, what even are these things that people are doing? And finally, like in the past year, things have kind of coalesced enough to where I feel like I have the root, the tree trunk, and the branches. So it's like, oh, okay, this is a variation on a body lock, right? Or like this is a variation on a split squat, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
And that's helpful because then like if I go to class and I don't have a ton of time to drill, I see somebody doing something, I can kind of assimilate it just by watching them. And I assume for you, it's a similar process happening with the drums where all these years you've spent painstakingly putting things together. You've built up enough sort of foundation that now things come more quickly. But if people were to get the idea that there are any shortcuts, that's wrongheaded because it's only by virtue of all that time you've put in.
Oh, dude, these rabbit holes work though. You have to understand these rabbit holes work. Also, firstly, before I even add to the dialogue, congrats on the purple belt because not only is that an amazing accomplishment, but a lot of people drop out during blue belt. The gap between blue and anything else seems to be, it really takes its toll. When you're a white belt, you're super giddy. And then you get to blue. Oh, it was your first promotion. And then you're like, All right, I've been here. Can I do something else, please? No, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. Okay, so luckily you and anyone else that if you do BJJ or if you do like a striking like Muay Thai especially or boxing, you understand that there are levels to games. I look at drumming the same way. Yeah, drumming has an artistic value to it, but it is a very there are um, fundamental truths that lie within drumming that are not abstract. Okay, we know these things, right? Otherwise, the physics behind sound would not demonstrate themselves in reality, right? So the cool thing about being able to go into this rabbit hole that ties in so well to music is that we can use a lot of correlation. You mentioning how you can now you can start to see and pick up pattern recognition is amazing because I feel the same way in striking. Actually, recently, very recently, I started southpaw. Not started, but I've continued my southpaw journey, where I'm actually sparring southpaw comfortably. And I grew up playing soccer left-footed, which is very strange because I'm a right dominant person. I was telling my dad this like the past couple of weeks. Man, I've been sparring southpaw. It feels really good. And he told me apparently when I was a kid, I was like left-handed, and then they like forced me to be right-handed. I don't know if that's true or not. Regardless, now I'm sparring southpaw, and so my stance switch is starting to happen in real time in a flow more quickly, right? And when I see patterns, I love martial arts because whenever I'm striking, I think of it like a chess game, and I think about pattern recognition, and I see people's tails, I see people's baits, I see all that stuff in real time because music moves quickly, right? Notes move quickly, dude. If you don't catch that, it's gone. Bye. See you. See you later. You're not going to hit that until the next verse, maybe, if it exists again. So the cool thing is now I can see when someone throws something simple like jab, cross, hook. Okay, right? But when someone does low jab, fake low high, same side kick, I can pick that up and I can return it in southpaw or in orthodox, or I can just adapt. It's movement in real time, dude. You know this, right? Like, oh, dude, I know you know this, right? So the cool thing is pattern recognition exists in so many aspects of life. And the more that you become fine-tuned in that art or craft, the more that you actually start to liberate yourself to be able to time hack, right? And to shortcut in the sense that now you've spent so much time absorbing information and drilling information that it's all the same thing. Movement is movement is movement, right? Movement is movement. I guess the biggest disruption to this idea was like Danaher, right? He was probably the biggest disruption to all of it because then he started really pushing on the legs and all that stuff. And so people had to then start drilling that and counters to that. For those of you that are not in BJJ, you know, there's a great BJJ mastermind by the name of John Danaher who helped popularize attacking the legs. And so this opened up a world in the BJJ realm to not only have new tools to attack, but also to defend and to build your game, right? And so there are a lot of people that have just attacked legs and disregard the upper half of the body. Some people that encompass. This is kind of like in drumming, like if you consider, I think so. For me, a big disruption and a good disruption in the drumming world, in my generation, for me was, Dave Weckl and Vinny Colaiuta. When I first saw like Aaron Spears, to me, that was a huge disruption because he started to implement things that I had never heard before. I love flams. I love triplets. And so for me, that was like, what is that? Right. So it forced my pattern recognition in that sense. It forced me to have to like, oh, now I have to drill flams. Dude, I love flams. I play too many flams, actually. Actually, I love flam so much that when I record my 2 and 4, my 2 and 4, whenever I have a kick and a snare, I flam, dude. You know, I'm just kidding. I'd get fired from every session gig if I didn't know how to not flam.
I mean, you could just say I'm playing Dilla beats, right? It's supposed to flam, bro.
Yo, trying to kill me, dude?
Sorry.
But yeah, actually, I'm really intrigued. I don't know. I guess we'll find out in the comments. But I want to know what everyone does when they listen to podcasts. Like, I'm intrigued for drumming podcasts. Like, are you sitting behind a pad? Are you drilling doubles? Are you washing your dishes? Are you on the toilet right now? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you guys do? Because for me, I just recently got into a podcast that I love. And when I'm driving or just vacuuming the house, put on my earbuds, listen to the podcast. So
Yeah.
I'd like, we should find out in the comments down below, like, what are people doing? Are you
Yeah. Let
drilling your
us know.
doubles, or are you dumping? Are you drilling your doubles, or are you dumping? Which one is it?
What are you doing right now?
You know,
Yeah.
it could be both, right? You know, there's someone that's drilling doubles on their lap as they dump.
In the entire history of humankind, that has to have happened at least once. So many people, 9 billion people on Earth. Someone has done it. Oh, you're putting your hand up? Okay.
You think I have not taken sticks? Bro, pre-phones,
That's a work
what do you
ethic
think I
right there.
did?
Okay.
Pre-phones, I was like, notice the tonal change? That's because I used to play Big Firth, and Big Firth has no consistency.
Interesting.
I'm just kidding.
No, I you know what's funny is I didn't even register it just because like different sticks having different tones is like par for the course. I used to have pads all over the living room, and if I was on the phone or something, I would just kind of like aimlessly walk from one to the other and just sort of be constantly fidgeting and tapping. Yeah.
And obviously, for anyone that plays Vic Firth and loves Vic Firth, I'm just kidding. I say that because a lot of my really good friends are Vic Firth and overseas, and that is a legacy company that they've done. I don't need to preface. I don't need to explain. It was a joke. Y'all chill out. But yeah.
So I want to stay in the vein of teaching and practice, but I also want to talk about a realm that I've been mildly fascinated with for the past year, and that I talked a little bit about with Halpern. Is there an intrinsic value to learning to play loud? So if you had a student who's like, I want to play stadium gigs, but I don't need to hit hard, they can just turn the levels up.
Oh. Okay, I'm listening. You had to get a reaction out of me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's the question. Is there a value to learning to play loud, mechanically, musically, spiritually?
Yeah. So I'm going to answer that question by asking a question. Are you a loser, or are you not a loser? No, I'm just kidding. So listen. This is a really, this world is passionate. I'm passionate about this world. I'm a heavy player. I mean, dude, I was in jazz band. I did the whole thing. I don't need to prove anything to anyone, right? I like to hit out loud. I'm playing drums, dude. You know, I'm not like Tommy Igo says, we're playing drums, not, what does he say? Not flute. I like to play loud. We're playing drums, dude. But check this out, dude. I actually get this question a lot from students about like being powerful, because typically people that are not used to that fatigue quickly and also don't sound good. That's not a judge. That's not like oh, you suck. I'm saying like those are their words. I'm hitting loud, but I don't sound good. The drums are not getting a good sound, and that's because there's an art to playing with power. There's a difference between just hitting harder and being precise, accurate, powerful, controlled, right? Dynamics. You know, people, I actually love this because early on in my career, you know, when videos of me were being put on the internet and I was hitting hard, people were like, oh, you should learn to be dynamic, or oh, he's going to throw out his shoulders, you know, in 5 years. And I don't know if y'all know this, but loud is a dynamic, and then louder is also a dynamic. So, and actually, what I like to say is, if you've taken lessons with me, you know that many times I challenge you to play extremely soft. We'll bring a pad. As a matter of fact, we won't have a pad. I'm on a wooden table. I've done many lessons here. This Steadfast has a lot of stories for me, but I'll meet with a student and we'll bring sticks and I'll say, all right, give me your sticks, put them aside. We're going to play on the wooden table. And I want you to imagine there's a sleeping baby next to you. And if you wake the sleeping baby up, you lose. Let's see your dynamics. And without fail, that 3-inch range is a really tough range for people to be quieter than. You should be able to, I used to tap on my pad as Penelope, my firstborn, was like 3 months sleeping next to me, right? She was our only child. My wife and I, we used to tag team. She'd go to work. I'd tag out, boom, we'd do some other stuff, right? And I used to play on my pad as she was napping near her. And that's a good thing. But because dynamic people are so weird, man. You see someone playing with power and they think that, oh, you should be more dynamic. Okay. And then I just hit hard. And dude, anytime someone tells me to be more dynamic and I'm playing loud, you know I'm going up to the next decibel range. I'm logarithmicing this stuff up, 300 times, 300. No, but anyway, I say all that to say, yes, playing with power is not as easy as just hitting harder. Without fail, I see drummers try to hit harder, and in their zones are dookie. So they're hitting edges. And so there's a lot of ring. There's not a lot of consistency in the timbre of the drum. They're playing into the drum as opposed to playing out. Anyone that's played timpani, what happens if you play into a timpani? My gosh, dude, that's not even a real sound you're getting. So practicing playing in and out of your drums and in and out of your cymbals. I've spent so much time on hi-hats. I've spent so much time on my ride. I think that you can play with power and be crisp and articulate. And that's actually harder than a lot of times, than playing soft as you can, because it tests your physical ability and limit, right? How powerfully can you play with keeping articulation and speed and control? And so that's a challenge that I give to people. Believe it or not, dude, doing Muay Thai and boxing stuff has helped me understand my shoulders. When you're first learning boxing, your shoulders are tight because they want you to bring your arms up, your guard up, and your chin down. And so as a beginner, you do this, right? And then you learn how to relax your shoulders and then utilize your guard a lot more cleanly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that process of relaxing my shoulders, dude, I feel like drums are easy now. Drums are easy, dude. When you're hitting a bag or when you're sparring and you're hitting pads and hitting mitts, drums are easy. Hitting with power is easy. And remember, there's a difference between just being loud and just the encompassing aspect of power, right?
I feel like this might be an impetus for me to work on my striking more, because somehow working on my heel hook finishes hasn't improved my single strokes at all.
That's actually really funny.
I keep trying to crank it harder, but then the tom fills just stay the same speed.
There's so much when it comes to power. Actually, if I may, can I stay on this powerful aspect?
Yeah, of course.
Topic. So there's a lot that is involved here. You're not just talking about the shoulders aspect. Drummers have gears. We do. We have fingers, we have wrists, we have arm. You know what I've noticed? For those of you that are listening or watching, whatever you're doing, maybe you're taking the dump right now. I want you to truly analyze yourself. Okay, whenever you next go on your pad, on your drum kit, if you can analyze yourself in real time, do this. And if not, just record yourself and watch yourself back, right? So that you can be unbiased and not trying to change yourself for the analyzation process or analyzing process. I want you to see how much emphasis you have on one of these gears. Do you have weak wrists? How are your forearms? Are you the type of drummer that is either playing fingers and bounce or arm? Are you the type of player that only plays arm? Are you the type of player that has only wrist motion and hasn't quite figured out how to utilize true finger technique and then bounce? What I have noticed in analyzing my students, because there's an analyzing process that I do before I don't have a preset teaching method for my students. Everything's tailored to them. So I watch them play. And what this has helped me with is to have a massive pool of drummers that I can take analytics from, and then I can keep in my notes. So I have this mental database of the most average problems that happen. And I've noticed that a lot of drummers have very weak wrists and weak forearms. And because they have wrists and weak forearms, they're dependent upon finger technique and arm technique. So they're skipping an entire gear, but also because they have weak forearms, which is the column of support to essentially your fingers, they have truly weak fingers also. And so their finger technique and their bounce, their reliance on bounce, what it actually is it is a fail-safe right? For when they meet a threshold that shouldn't be such a threshold, that comes into play when they try to utilize wrist control. A lot of drummers skip wrists. And so what I've noticed is a lot of weak fingers, and then that ends up having you to use more arm. It's not a there's not a relationship between the three gears that it, is conducive to successful, efficient drumming. And so how do you know this? Why do you say that? Well, because whenever I test my students' finger control, even guys that have marched and whatnot, it's always the same thing. It's like, yeah, well, I feel really slick with my hands, but I fatigue after 4 shows on tour, or I have a lot of hand pain. My hands cramp, depending on what it is, right? I teach guys at tour, I teach guys at DCI, whatever. And there's always a lingering problem. Dude, you're probably not going to pick up my hands very well. Hopefully you do.
Yeah,
but I have no calluses.
I
have like one here from when I had a metal wedding ring. And then I have like this one. This one's fresh. So I think I've been doing pull-ups or whatever.
Yeah, probably from the chin-up bar. I was just going to say, yeah.
And then actually, look at this. That's a little bit of a blister that's forming. And that's because I don't really have calluses. Not because my skin is supple. You shake my hand, it feels weird. I don't lotion. I hate lotion on the inside of my hands. On the outside is fine. The inside of hands, I don't like that mistakes. But anyway, I say all that to say a lot of drummers, their hands are beat up and destroyed. And it's like, oh, look at me. I played until I bled, which is cool, I guess. I mean, if you hit a cymbal and it slices you, all right. But if your hands are tearing from sticks, why? Have you asked yourself the question, why? Is that normal? For those of you that are listening, I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm going to ask the question, how do blisters occur on flesh, on skin? What is necessary for blistering to occur? Think about the question.
I'm not going to give it away.
Yeah, we're going to tie this into the topic at hand, right? Which is hand technique, power in the wrist, all that stuff. How does blistering occur? Okay, you got your answer? Some of you are probably right because it's very simple. Moisture and friction. Moisture and friction. So for those of you that play football, soccer, anything that requires you to move your feet, you know that there are dry fit socks that wick moisture. The reasoning for that is for minimizing blistering. Yeah, you want to minimize blistering. If you go play soccer in regular socks or football and you're cutting a lot, you're going to have a lot of blisters. So blistering occurs with moisture and friction. And then blisters pop. Sometimes you can bleed, all that stuff, right? So you want to consider how friction plays into drumming. Remember, at the beginning of this, I mentioned something about fulcrum points. And everyone's like, yeah, this is where the fulcrum point of the stick is. Yeah, but have you considered that? So I was alluding now to foreshadowing to how this plays into your stick control. You have to have a fulcrum point, but you have to understand how the friction in that fulcrum point works. Okay, a lot of guys, they have the fulcrum point down on the stick, but not in their hands. And so their fulcrum point moves so much that what it forces them to do is to grip harder, then bringing tension to the hand, locking up the wrist, and now they're dependent upon arm. So a lot of cats they go from here to here because their fulcrum point, right? There's a lot of friction. It's not something you think about. It's second nature. If you're going to swing a bat and it slips, you grip tighter. You don't let go, right? So it's human nature to make these tiny adaptations. So I want you to think about that because a lot of guys have blistering, blah, blah, blah. And so I say all this because, all right, I've analyzed people's hands and they play finger technique really nicely. They rely on balance. I ask them to play wrists and their wrists are weak. There's no control. Everything dies. All of a sudden they look like a drummer that just started. That's a problem. Because when it comes to efficiency and longevity, you are capping that. You're capping that. Dude, our checkout we did a tour where we were doubling up. So we were opening for Tony McAlpine. I played for Tony McAlpine and for Archeco. It was a total of 2 hours of music every night, a little more. We played 22 straight shows. This is on our Instagram. We have years ago, we posted the tour dates. They're still up there. We played these shows straight, dude, straight. Okay. Came back, my hands were fine. No bleeding, none of that. I've sliced myself on cymbals, right? But dude, longevity. You know how many, unfortunately, a lot of my students dude, by show 5, by show 6, by show 10, I'm dumped, I'm drained, I'm this, I'm that, my hands hurt. this is a problem in the drumming community because unfortunately drummers are stuck in the past. And a lot of drummers, what they do is they repeat things that they see without analyzing. Oh, my favorite drummers are XYZ. So I copy XYZ, but they never question XYZ. Yeah, there's no sin in questioning your heroes. In the MMA world, if you don't question your heroes and you end up fighting against them, you're going to get crushed by them. There's a whole process of tape evaluation. And fighters and athletes, they watch tape. They watch tape. They watch tape. They analyze their heroes. And if they ever get in the ring with them or the octagon with them, they have to be able to defeat their heroes. And it's not like they're shedding all this hate. Dude, there are guys punching each other in the face. You're playing drums, you're playing wood on plastic, right? You don't ever have, even if you like battle with your hero, you're not hitting him. Imagine how these guys feel. We're like compete against their heroes. Drummers, there is no sin in questioning. If I know this might be the case, but if I'm your favorite drummer, which I shouldn't be, but if I am, you should be questioning everything that I do. Because if I don't have a response, an appropriate response, it means I haven't considered it. I haven't been pensive about it. And if I'm teaching you something I don't have a response for, I'm not qualified to teach that aspect. And unfortunately, that's what we do in drumming community. My favorite drummer, dude, I'll put myself in the hot seat. Okay. I'll put myself in the hot seat. Let's say I have so many favorite drummers. How do I even think this? All right, let's say, I don't know, freaking A. Dave Weckl. Let's aim high. Okay. Oh, I adore him and his drumming. And I got to see him live for the first time like a year ago, not even a year ago, a few months ago. His drumming is immaculate. When I was a kid, I obsessed over him. And then I got older and I started to question what he did. And I wondered to myself, why isn't Dave Weckl very powerful? I'm putting myself on the hot seat. Y'all don't have to agree with me. I'm trying to make a point. And I asked myself, why isn't he very powerful? And he's very open about his hand technique. He keeps his fulcrum here. Mm-hmm. And I actually heard him speak in person about this and why he holds it there. And he has his reasoning. And I know Dave Weckl's reasoning because I've obsessed over him. But I disagree. I don't disagree with the concept, but I disagree with just having your fulcrum point here always. There are pros, and what are the cons? The cons are I found that you can't be powerful. What do you mean you can't be powerful? Have you heard him hit an accent? It's really great. Yeah. Have you ever heard him blast out a prog metal gig that's 90 minutes? We have not. And it's not that he can't do it. He's Dave Weckl. It's that he doesn't need to, and his technique allows him to have the facility to do what he needs to do. But I think that there are efficiencies that are like, dude, come on. How many, you're in the BJJ world. When Danaher rocked the world, do you think the Gracies were happy with him questioning BJJ?
And Kenzo was happy that he was one of his own, maybe. He's like, at least this guy who's disrupting things is doing it on my behalf. Yeah.
Sure. But I know behind closed doors, there were some dudes that were not happy. You know, maybe he's not the best example, but there are a lot of people that create waves, and it's like, are you questioning? Like, what's the sin in questioning? If the questioning leads to a response that is an articulate, accurate, and positive response, let's adopt that and grow. Unfortunately, drummers are stuck in the past. Dude, I see you guys out there on Instagram, on YouTube. Y'all think I don't watch? It's because I don't comment and I don't like. I'm watching. I see your hand technique. I see it. A lot of drummers nowadays, their videos are beautiful. They're edited perfectly. They look great, blah, blah, blah. They've got microphones and a mix template. I know you use mix templates. Come on. Who mixes every freaking video? But I see that hand technique, and I see where the efficiencies are lacking. And then when I hear you play live, and there's a difference between how you sound live and in your videos, right? I'm my own worst critic. I have nothing to prove to anyone. I'm just on this journey having fun. But if I'm going to teach, I have to be able to analyze and evaluate. And unfortunately, this is something that I see that connects itself back to that point of how do we play with power? Because that's one aspect that a lot of people don't truly understand. They think just hit harder. Not the case, dude. Not the case. I could rant about, there's so many branches in this tree, dude, that I could be led into that I think are extremely important to discuss. But man, I mean, you guys have 6 days to talk about it because there's a lot, man. And look, listen, as an educator, because I'm not just an educator, right? I have a band, I tour, I do blah, 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 but I love to teach. And as an educator, if I tear my students, what's the word? when you build up a fort made of, is it on a paper? I don't know. Regardless, if you have a castle made of foam, I'm gonna come in there. I'm gonna smash that hole down. Right? Oh my God, the Houston just came out of me. I'm sorry. I'm gonna knock it over, and then I'm gonna help you build one up with a foundation that's strong, resilient. Okay, it's not just made of foam or paper or sand. Okay, some people make really, really pretty sand castles, but it's still made of sand. And as soon as the water comes in, it's gone. It means nothing. And if you're a drummer that teaches, if you don't know how to crush the broken foundation of your students to help rebuild a stronger one, then you're failing yourself and you're failing them. And that's what I like to do. I like to call people's issues out, because I've done that with myself, and I still do. No one can be like, yeah, but Richie, you, bro, yeah, I'll be the first one to tell you when I'm bad. I do that. I have done that. But anyway, that's a lot. I just threw a lot out there, but it's how I feel about these things, right? You should question your heroes, and in a healthy way, you should analyze yourself, you should analyze others, and you should be more purposeful in what you do. What we do and how we do it is extremely important. Okay. And then the why you do it, right? That's different for everyone, but the what you do and how you do it, that methodology is really important to analyze.
Well, this has been amazing. If you're willing, I think we should definitely do a part 2 in the future. I have so many questions. We barely got to any of them, and then there are even more questions that I had just as a result of speaking. But maybe to send everybody off, you can tell them a little bit about Archeco and like what the latest stuff you've got going on is, and where people should go to check you out.
Well, firstly, I appreciate you letting me be on here and rant while I have caffeine flowing through my veins.
No, it's amazing.
So Archeco is the band that I'm in. My band. It's not my band. There are 5 of us. Archeco is a progressive instrumental metal band. We're loud fusion. It's like if Mario and Luigi and Bowser and King Kong and Princess Peach all had a lot of coffee and then just wrote together, right? I'll be Princess Peach. So yeah, we're a progressive instrumental metal band, and we're everywhere. If you want to hear our music and you haven't, Spotify, like wherever you stream music, we're there, unless you're on some super niche platform that like only 3 people know about. But it's fun, man. I love it. We get to tour a lot. Right now we're on a tour break. Some of us have families, and so we're on a tour break, hoping to write some new music. We were featured on Jacob Collier's new album. So that new album that just released, if you listen to the first song, 100,000 Voices, we're the end of that. We're with Willow Smith and Jacob, which is a really cool feature to do. And yeah, we're writing music, and touring will probably start in June or July again. I'm not sure. But if we start touring, just watch social medias and you'll see our dates. I love it. It's a lot of fun. It has challenged me in many ways that I think if we do ever do a part 2 would be cool to talk about, because I've had a lot of challenges in my adult life and my career as an adult that have forced me to really work. But yeah, that's the band. It's fun. It's loud. I don't know. Check it out. There are minor playthrough videos that exist of some of the songs. So if you're curious to see what it's like live, you'll see that. I don't edit my stuff, right? If I can't play it, I don't play it. There's no editing in live settings. So if I'm on tour, you get one shot. So you got to play the parts right. So don't worry. There's no trickery. There's no magic. What you see is what you get.
I was just going to say people should check out your Instagram as well because of that very thing. It's like you mentioned earlier that you kind of alluded that the true test of a drummer is how they sound right up in front of them live in the room, or else on a smartphone mic where you can't fake anything. And you have so many tour videos where somebody just bootlegged it from an iPhone mic, and you can really tell that the things like the touch and the power and the subdivision is just intrinsic. Like you're pulling that sound out of the drums. It's not anything that anybody's tweaking on a soundboard. So I really, really encourage people to check out your Instagram as well.
Well, dude, that's very kind of you. I really appreciate that. I don't take that lightly. I think, I'm really bad at receiving compliments. And when I was younger, my dad used to tell me to get better at it, and I'm trying to. So the best response to that is to be appreciative. And I do not take that lightly. So thank you. Because there are a lot of other really awesome drummers, and there are a lot of other cats that do it, much better than I do. And so whenever anyone takes any appreciation for my craft, I am grateful for it. So.
Well, I'm grateful for you coming on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun. I really, really appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll do a part 2 soon because I've got a ton more questions.
Yeah, dude. Well, all right. Enjoy the day. Go get some training in, and I'll see you later. Thank you, everybody, for being on the podcast, listening. I really appreciate you guys as well. I can't see you, but I see you. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Thanks again. Speak soon.